Today, we're untangling a truly fascinating Supreme Court procedural puzzle. I mean, it's got inheritance drama, annulment complications, and a legal maze that will absolutely make your head spin. Specifically, we're diving deep into the landmark case of Lucila David and the heirs of Rene Aguas versus Cherry Calilung. That's GR No 241036, decided on January 26, 2021. If you've ever wondered what actually happens when the messy, chaotic realities of family life crash headfirst into the incredibly strict procedural doors of the justice system, you are going to love this one. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, a tale of two marriages. Second, the legal ping pong. Third, the standing question. Fourth, the Supreme Court's verdict. And finally, the proper legal remedies. Let's start with Section 1, a tale of two marriages. One man, two families, and one incredibly messy estate. So we're looking at the life of Rene Aguas. After his first marriage ended, he started a second family. Let's quickly walk through this timeline to establish the complex chronology of Rene's life without, getting too bogged down in the heavy legalese just yet. So in 1981, Rene marries Lucila. Fast forward to 2005, a court voids that marriage due to psychological incapacity. But importantly, there is absolutely no actual property partition executed. Then, just a year later in 2006, Rene marries his second wife, Cherry. Finally, in 2015, Rene suddenly passes away intestate, which means he died without a will. And honestly, this timeline, it's the perfect storm for a legal disaster. 5. That is the number of children Rene had with his first wife, Lucila. We're talking about Princess, Danica, Sean Patrick, Sean Michael, and Samantha. When their fathers suddenly passed away, these 5 kids, the Aguas heirs, found their inheritance, which included a prime piece of real estate called the Sunset Valley Estate, entirely tied up with their father's second wife, Cherry. And she had already gone to court to settle Rene's intestate estate. Now, what's really interesting here is exactly what didn't happen back in 2005. You see, when a marriage is annulled or voided, the law requires the couple's properties to be divided, and the children's presumptive legitimized, basically their guaranteed baseline inheritance, has to be officially delivered to them. The trial court literally ordered this back in 2005, but none of it happened. The nullity decision never registered. The Sunset Valley estate never partitioned. The legitimize never delivered. So the first marriage ended on paper, for sure, but the financial ties between Rene, Lucila, and their kids were never legally severed before Rene went and married Cherry. Which brings us right to Section 2, the legal ping pong, choosing the wrong door in the courthouse. Here's what triggered the absolute chaos. In 2017, Cherry filed a petition to settle Rene's estate. Realizing their inheritance was suddenly at major risk, the Aguas heirs and Lucila decided to aggressively challenge that second marriage. So, they walk right into the family court in Angeles City, specifically Branch 59, and they file a direct petition to declare the marriage of Rene and Cherry null and void. I mean, it seems perfectly logical, right? It's a family issue, so you go to the family court to file for nullity. But as we're about to see, procedural law is essentially a giant building with very, very specific doors, and you must possess the exact right key to open them. And here's where the legal ping-pong match begins. Branch 59, the family court looks at their petition and says, yeah, we don't have jurisdiction over this. You aren't the right parties to file this case. We're transmitting this to a regular court. So they bounce it over to Branch 60. Branch 60, a regular civil court, catches the file, takes one look, and says, wait a minute, this is a petition to nullify a marriage. We don't have jurisdiction over that. This strictly belongs in family court, and they just dismiss it. So the family is left totally stranded in the metaphorical hallway, bouncing between courts without a single judge actually hearing their case. Let's move on to Section 3, the standing question, who actually holds the key to the courthouse door? In law, standing basically means you have the explicit legal right to initiate a specific lawsuit. If you don't have it, the court dismisses your case outright, no questions asked. So let me pose this high-impact question directly to you. Can children, or a former spouse, directly sue to nullify a second marriage? Think about it carefully. If your parent remarries or your ex-spouse remarries, do you actually have the legal authority to walk into a family court and file a direct petition to declare that brand new marriage null and void? Well, the Supreme Court has a crystal clear, incredibly strict rule on this under AM No. 021110 SC, quote, only an aggrieved or injured spouse may file a petition for annulment of voidable marriages or declaration of absolute nullity of void marriages. Such petition cannot be filed by compulsory or intestate heirs of the spouses, unquote.
The state's whole policy here is to protect the institution of marriage from outside interference. Therefore, the only people who hold the key to the direct nullity door are the husband or the wife of that specific marriage.
So, the crucial point is, neither Lucila nor those 5 kids fit the description of an injured spouse. Lucila's marriage to Renee was judicially declared void from the very beginning. Legally speaking, she isn't a spouse to Renee at all anymore. And the children? Well, they're compulsory heirs, absolutely, but they are certainly not spouses to the marriage in question. Therefore, under the rules, they legally cannot file a direct petition to nullify Renee and Cherry's marriage. Branch 59 was actually right to say they were the wrong parties.
Let's look at Section 4, the Supreme Court's verdict, navigating the maze.
The Aguas family, completely frustrated by all this, elevated the issue all the way to the Supreme Court. To understand the High Court's brilliant solution, we really have to define a vital legal concept, the collateral attack. Think of it as a side door challenge. A direct attack is what the family originally tried, suing specifically and exclusively to cancel a marriage. But a collateral attack is when you're already inside a lawsuit for something else entirely, like dividing an estate, and you attack the validity of a marriage simply as a necessary incidental step to get your rightful inheritance.
The Supreme Court actually ruled that the lower court's dismissal of the direct nullity petition was totally correct. Because, as we just learned, the family lacked the standing to file a direct attack. But the court didn't just leave them stranded. They effectively said, look, you knocked on the wrong door, which is why your case was dismissed. But don't worry. Here is the exact procedural map to get into the right rooms to get what you're actually looking for.
Which brings us to our final section, the proper legal remedies, opening the right doors.
The Supreme Court provided a highly structured resolution that separated the mother's legal needs from the children's. And this brilliantly illustrates 2 distinct paths. For the Agua heirs, the 5 kids, the right door is a collateral attack within the currently pending intestate estate settlement proceeding. For Lucila, the first wife, the right door is a completely separate civil action for partition directed against the estate administrator. 2 different parties, 2 completely different legal remedies.
Let's look at the kids first. Why is the estate settlement proceeding the absolute perfect venue for them? Because honestly, their ultimate goal isn't really to destroy their father's second marriage out of spite. Their goal is to protect their guaranteed successional rights. The intestate court's entire job is to determine the exact assets of Renee's estate, establish who the rightful heirs are, and figure out their proportions. The kids can walk into that specific proceeding and mount a collateral attack. They can literally say to the judge, Cherry shouldn't get a surviving spouse's share because her marriage to our father was void due to the unresolved 2005 property issues. That is a perfectly valid maneuver. But what about Lucila? Why can't she just join her kids in the estate proceeding? Well, legally speaking, she's actually a stranger to Renee's estate. Remember, her marriage was voided from the beginning. She doesn't inherit from him. Her claim is strictly that she co-owns the Sunset Valley estate from their time together. An intestate court only has jurisdiction over the dead person's property. It simply can't adjudicate property claims of outside third parties. So she has to file a completely separate civil action for partition to legally pull her 50% ownership out of the estate before the estate can even be settled. This case is an absolute masterclass in procedural law. It shows us that simply having a valid right isn't enough. You've got to assert that right in the correct venue using the correct legal vehicle. Which leaves us with a vital real-world lesson. The paperwork matters. The follow-through matters. If you don't secure your legal exits today by properly partitioning properties and delivering legitimate seams when a marriage ends, what wrong doors will your family be forced to knock on tomorrow? Think about that, and we'll see you in the next explainer.